Hey everyone, welcome at the Shattering Ceilings. It's Lauren,
And Megan.
and today we have a little mini episode really about how to work through things when it feels heavy, right? How to
Mm,
kind of go back to feeling that lightness, that joy, right? To kind of like
yeah.
move through when you're feeling maybe a little even stuck.
Yeah. Not to bypass what you're experiencing, right? But just something to make it feel a little bit lighter
hmm
as you're moving through the shit. Because sometimes we have to trudge through shit. It happens. So Lauren and I both in the last couple of weeks have been having a lot going on, good, bad, and other ways, right? Because it's always
Right.
a fun mix.
It
And
is.
it's felt a little heavy.
It has. And a lot of people, honestly, that I've talked to are still feeling, I don't know if it's coming out of winter time, or what it is. I'm like, man, do I have like a seasonal thing going on, right now? But still feeling a little heavy. And, sure, there's lots of different things that are going on, I'm sure, in the world and everything else. And I heard about this practice that I started actually today, which was focusing on love. And Meg, you also have a technique that you like to use, right? When it comes to
Yeah. So
your
let's
patients.
let's talk about you a little bit though. So this
Okay.
you were having a conversation with your friend,
Mm-hmm.
right? Talking
Yeah.
about what's going on, and she brought
Yeah.
this practice up to you. What did she
Yeah.
tell you to do?
Well, she knows that I'm really good with morning routine, which we have talked about plenty. Right. And often in the morning, one of the first things I do is write down gratitude. And then I go right into like my affirmations slash goals. And sometimes because it's not happening as quickly as I want it to, or, it hasn't happened yet, sometimes I feel like I I get a little anxiety about not meeting my goals yet or not being
Mm.
not happening as quick as I wanted to. And so she said, why don't you make this switch where you stop doing that just for a week and instead write down all the things that you love about your life, about your career, about your family, about just everything and anything, and just simply focus on love for the next week and see how that feels in the morning. And I did it actually today for the first time. And at first, how when you start journaling, things like that, it's a little slow. You're like writing like, okay, my family, my husband, my kid. You know what I mean? Like you're writing all like the
Yeah.
normal stuff. But then the more that you go along, I feel like the more detailed it becomes, right? And then you start scribbling faster and, just get more things. And I filled up the whole page and then some. You know what I mean? And it did. It felt really, really good.
And you felt afterwards, did you experience the same anxiety that you've been experiencing the
No,
last couple of weeks? No.
no, I haven't at all. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And so I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of the week and maybe, I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe forever.
maybe forever. I love that. It
Yeah.
makes me think of a couple of things. Number one, we talk about, you hear people talk about manifestation and what you focus on grows, right? And there's this whole idea that we need to be writing down and reminding ourselves of our goals and all these things, but then we're only focusing on what we don't have. That's what really struck me when you were talking earlier. Is like every
Exactly.
single day you write a list of things that you don't yet have.
Right. Right. And no wonder I'm
How
like
is that?
caught up.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know why I never thought of it. You know what I mean? Because I've been doing this for a long time. And for a while it worked. For a while it didn't make me feel that way. You know what I mean? And I don't know
Mm.
what switched. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a longer season or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's just it's time to freshen up. And I think that's another thing too, like to keep in mind when it comes to our routines and things like that. Like we sometimes need to change shit up.
Right. What served you at one point in your life may not serve you right now. And it doesn't mean it won't serve you again, but right now it's time to switch it up. I love that. Um, and I love that it's such a practical thing, right? Like anybody can spend 5 minutes in the morning writing down what they love about their life.
Exactly. Or at the end, doesn't, kind of,
Yeah,
or
absolutely. Do both.
right, do
Start and
both.
finish your day with what you love in your life. Imagine like going to bed with that on your mind, right?
Right.
Waking up with that on your mind. That's so great. I need to start doing that.
Or like if you're caught in the moment, that's another thing too. Like, we all have phones and you don't have to carry a journal around with you, but we all have a note section on our phone. Maybe, you're having a really like shitty situation or a tough moment and you're starting to feel that anxiety creep up or that scarcity or lack or whatever, right?
Mm.
pull out your phone, pull out your journal and start writing there what you love.
Yeah. And you
You
don't
know?
have to write it. You know, I actually did that today at work. I was walking around. It was a long day at work, guys. Lauren and I talked about it before we got on. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this episode because it's just emotionally taxing. And I was there for like 2.5 hours longer than I anticipated,
Yeah.
which means I went unprepared, right? I didn't bring lunch.
Right.
So at like 1 o'clock, when I'm like, man, that lunch clock was like 45 minutes ago and my stomach was rumbling. I was feeling like really not anxious or anything, just like, ugh, like I was
Yeah.
ready to just throw in the fucking towel for the day. And like I
Mm-hmm.
work in an environment where I'm constantly seeing the kids that I work with and I want to be on for them,
Right.
right?
Right.
They're going through a tough situation. So if I can show them a little bit of light anytime that we run across each other, which happens
Yeah.
often because I work in the gym portion, right? So I'm like walking back to the gym. I have a few minutes by myself and I caught myself in like a double-sided window or a tinted window. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And I just
Yeah.
looked like, bleh. Like I
Right.
didn't look happy, which is fine. You don't have to be happy all the time. I was like, man, that's not how I show up at work. Like that is not
Mm.
how that's not me, right?
No,
Like,
you're always ready to shine, ready to help. I feel like that's you.
yeah, and just bringing joy. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to do. I want to spark a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of joy anytime I talk to somebody and
Mm-hmm.
help lift them up. So I started going through the things that I was happy about in my life, like things that brought me joy in my life. And I just did that walking in my head. I didn't have my phone or anything with me
Mm-hmm.
back to the gym. And you know what? Thank God I did that because when I got to the gym, I happened to catch a moment where a bunch of boys threw a football over a 15-foot fence. And I was like, oh, they need their ball back. And guess who went and pulled that ball out? Me. And it was a pain in the butt. And I was huffing and puffing and sweating at the end of it. But if I hadn't taken that time to like check in and remember,
Right.
like one of the things that I love in my life is my job. I love the opportunity to work with these kids. Had I not
Mm-hmm.
stopped to take that moment to reconnect,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have looked at that and been like, oh, that fucking sucks. And walked into the gym and got it
Right,
clocked
right.
out, got my stuff and gone home. Like, which is terrible to say, but I mean, that was real. That was the level that I was on today. I'm like, I can go and get this ball, or I can go home and get lunch before I get my kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I went and got the ball, and
That
then
was
I
nice
ate
of you.
a string cheese for lunch. Yeah, you
Mm.
know. But the point of that story is like, it can change the way you feel so quickly, right? It's like
Right.
immediate,
It is.
instantaneously, you feel better and you feel reconnected. We talked about oneness a couple of episodes ago,
Right.
and I don't know if we mentioned it there, but like when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling like down and out and sad about what's going on in your life, it's
Mm-hmm.
often because you feel disconnected from other,
Yes.
right?
Isolated.
Because when we're connected, right? I'm the only one going through this. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
understands, you know, all those thoughts to start to creep in. Why can't I figure it out? Why am I not
Right.
more successful? You're missing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're missing that deep connection. So taking those moments, like it doesn't necessarily have to be between you and another person to feel reconnected.
Right.
It's that focusing on that love, right? That reconnects you to everything and it can help things move a little easier. We can't bypass our shit. There's no way to do that.
Right.
But we can do things to take care of ourselves. And like it's really a form of self-love, I think.
I think so too, for sure. Pointing out those
Like
things.
take care of yourself. Yeah.
And I think it's a choice too, like going back to like the isolation piece and kind of like being kind of stuck in that thinking of like, oh, it's only happening to me or it's just me. You know, you do have a choice to again plug yourself back in and re-engage, even if it is just that
Yeah.
conversation that you have with it yourself and reminding yourself that no, I do have number one people that love me and things that I love and again finding that oneness like you were just talking about.
Yeah. It's so simple. And we wanted to share this with you guys today because it's something that's really accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this anywhere, anytime. It's just like we talked
Yes.
about breath, or I talked about breath on the last episode. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one notices when you change your breathing. Nobody's going to know what you're thinking about. We're all thinking all the time. We're all distracted
Right.
in our own thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm. Did we talk about, I think we did talk about it a long time ago, but now that the weather, well, at least where I am, I know it's already been hot as hell by you, Meg, but now that the weather is getting warmer here in the Northeast, gratitude walks. I really loved that last
Mm.
year. You know what I mean? And that's another thing you can take like 5 minutes out of your day during your lunch break, whatever, and doesn't have to be outside, if you want to walk through the hallway or like through the gym like you did, and taking the time again to point out the things that you're grateful for, that will instantly change, your mood if you're having a crappy day,
Absolutely. Think about it this way. When you don't feel well, right? When you're sick or you're injured, you're not in as good of a mood, right? Like you feel cruddy physically, so you feel cruddy mentally. The same thing is true oppositely. If you feel cruddy mentally, right, you're going to feel cruddy physically. So if the mental part is where you're getting caught up, right, you're feeling down, moving your body is going to make you mentally feel better. It's going to help to shift your mood. Movement helps so much. It helps to move that energy up and out, right? So we can transform those emotions, whatever it is you're going for.
Pretty sure you told me that last week.
Through.
Yeah. Right? Didn't you tell me that last week? I walked into the gym in a real shitty mood. One girl goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I'm just in a bad mood." She's like, "Yeah, I can tell." And I'm like, and then towards the end, she's like, "How do you feel now?" I'm like, "Actually, much better." Isn't that funny how that works?
Full of endorphins.
Yeah. But I remember you told me, you're like,
and it's so simple. It doesn't have to be anything big.
Right. But you were like,
yeah, stuff gets stuck. Yeah. So let's talk about that for just a second. I know we said this is going to be a mini episode. We'll see how long
we'll give it another 2 minutes.
Yeah. Think about what happens when you start to feel crappy, right? Maybe you feel stressed at work. Do you tense your shoulders up?
Oh, yeah. Look,
does your chest feel tight, right? Just think about that. Think about feeling stressed at work, and immediately your body's going to start going into action, right? They're like, we know what we do here. We pull our elbows up to our ears and we crunch in our chest, right? Or when you take like that emotional hit, right? You hunch over, your heart gets hit. Okay. It's you trying to protect that vulnerable place in yourself. Physically, our body feels our emotions. There's been this new research out actually recently that says that we digest our emotions, like the stomach and the spleen are part of us actually processing and digesting the experiences we go through and the emotions we have throughout the day. And it's part of why it's so important to get a good night's sleep. Think about how that affects your immunity and all these other things. Like it's all fucking connected, people.
Yeah, your gut.
So when you have these big feelings and you take those hits and you start to tighten yourself up and you don't move through those emotions, you shove them down. Where does that energy go? Energy cannot be destroyed or created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. And it is up to us to transform it. So when we're shoving it down into our body and just letting it pack up, we create all this dis-ease in our bodies, whether it's through our organ systems, muscular, bone issues, right? Like you have inflammation, arthritis, things like that start to show up. Inflammation is dis-ease in your body. So if we take that time to move, even if it's just stretching for a few minutes in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Stretching before you go to bed at night, it can really help to transform your feelings.
I need to remember
things
to do
that
that.
are bogging you down. Right?
Just stretch in general. The only time I'm really stretching is like literally before and after a workout. But our animals remind us all the time that as soon as they wake up, right, they're stretching out.
You take a stretch. And if you look at kids, guys, kids are such a great example of like how we took care of ourselves before we were told to do things in a certain way. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you look at a kid and they're jumping around, they're wriggling, they're rocking on the floor. Like jumping around, shaking your body helps to transform emotion. It helps to move energy in your body. They're taking care of themselves. We just don't understand it because it's not how we do it as adults. So like,
we're telling them to stop
wiggling.
They're
jumping and dancing. Join in. Right.
Yeah.
That is them trying to take care of themselves. They know they have energy and they got to get it out somewhere. So they're wiggling. They're jumping. They're singing. You know what I mean? They're dancing. Let yourself move.
Yeah. Speaking of that, this is total sidebar, but I thought it was the cutest thing ever. So we're at the table and Simone, she said she puts a B in front of a lot of things, like lasagna for lasagna. And I said, Simone, it's lasagna. And she goes, this is how I talk. And I like it. And I said, I had nothing to say to that. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're 4.
You're right.
You're going to grow up and you're going to learn how to talk the proper way and enunciate and all things.
Lasagna is delicious.
It is. And so I just let that be. But what a reminder of like just letting them be. You know what I mean? In that moment and them knowing what to say and do at times. And they are so much like smarter sometimes than we give them credit, right? Like coming out with something like that. This is how I am. And I like it. I was like,
Kids
please
have a
say
lot
that
of
way.
wisdom, man.
They do. They do. So
I
anyway,
love it so much.
me
So,
too.
guys, this week, focus on what you love in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Let go of all the shit. All right. If you are trying to fill a cup that's full of dirty water, you're not going to get anywhere. Dump
Mm-hmm.
that shit out, start clean, start filling it up with love.
And I would love to hear what you love. Like, totally spam our inbox on
Yes.
Instagram and tell us all the things, because I think that's another thing that will also spark joy when you can share things like that with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Let
All
us hear
right.
it. We'll see you next week, guys.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.